Welcome back to another fantastic episode of the Peaky Pod by Story Archives. I'm your host, Mario, alongside a very cardigan-wearing man on the other side of this Google Meet call.
Yeah. That's me, Zachary.
That's Zachary. Yeah, that's him.
Just glossed over my name.
Yeah, somebody's got to say your name, man.
I did. I just said it. What are you talking about?
Oh, I was getting to it
whatever.
sooner. I was excited. to say it.
I'll just let you run those intros.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Is it just me or rewatching this? I mean, somebody's probably watching this for the first time, but
I
never had season
like the 20th.
3. Yeah. This is honestly like my, I don't know, 4th rewatch of Peaky Blinders at least.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't remember season 3 being this jam-packed with just goodness.
Me neither.
Like goodness, conflict, and like there's a lot of nuanced stuff going on. It definitely sets the tone for the later seasons.
Mm-hmm.
And I do want to be cautious because I know some of our listeners are probably watching maybe some of them are watching Peaky Blinders for the first time and they want to just watch episode by episode. So I don't want to speak and let go of information that they don't know of yet. You know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean. I had a few moments when I was watching this episode and I saw so many dots connecting and I'm like, oh, I can't say anything about it.
Yeah, and I gotta say, I mean, obviously if you're listening to this episode, I hope you've watched episode 2, but you shouldn't be here if you haven't. So I'm gonna just say this whole episode is a giant setup gut punch. Like, it sets you up. The previous episode is Tommy and Grace's wedding, and then this episode, it's not even 2 episodes later. It's the next episode. Yeah. Grace is shot. Like, talk about a rough bit of like, they set you up. They give you a happy family outing moment at the end.
Yep. A
lot of stuff going on here. I mean, I had to pause several times just to take notes. Usually I'm just firing off notes as I go. But this one had a lot of political machinations going on, specifically with the introduction of the Economic League, which I gotta say is the creepiest of crews that Tommy has had to deal with so far.
Mm-hmm.
The Hughes is definitely a pedo.
Oh yeah.
And you know, I never picked up on that rewatching on other rewatches. It never really stood out to me, but Tommy throws shade at him several times in this episode. Like, you can see Tommy's disgust with him.
Yep.
And then I noticed it all, like in his first meeting with Hughes, and then also with the dog. He says, "Let's call it Boy. I bet you love your boy, don't you?"
Mm-hmm.
You know, when he said that, I was like, "Oh, I never noticed this in the previous rewatches." But you find out like these little, you know, details of each of these characters, and they become more despicable, because the worst part is that they're not only despicable, but it also feels like Tommy's completely over his head in dealing with these people. They send a message to his son, which is disgusting. It's just they left a note that said crematorium in there and like R.I.P. Charlie. I mean, they're like the Russians, right?
They are the Russians.
They're like the Russians that in the previous episode, Tommy is getting business contact with the Russians on his wedding day.
Yeah.
And then this one, they're literally threatening his son, like his literal 1-year-old, 2-year-old son.
Mm-hmm.
That's, you know, it's getting darker, that's for sure. I'll tell you this. And there was parts in this episode where I'm thinking to myself, I know you're ambitious, but having to deal with these snobs and these people that you start climbing up this political ladder that Tommy's going up right now, it's a tough pill to swallow. Now, I know he's doing this on behalf of Churchill and the Crown, but nonetheless, it's a lot. Now, I want to pause for a second and kind of like get into the episode recap now. A lot going on, but let's talk general impressions of the second episode for you in terms of, you know, remembering when you first watched it and then now kind of comparing it now to your rewatch.
It's much better this time around than I ever remember. I always remember seasons 3 and 4 for me being my least favorite. Not that they were bad. I always remember them as my least favorite. But upon rewatch, I really like the things, and I can appreciate the things that this is setting up for the future episodes, future seasons. But there are some things in this episode that caught me by surprise, especially with like Tommy's reaction. to
Oh,
what
yeah.
John Boy did. I was sitting there and I was just like, wait, what? I don't
even
remember
on
that.
even on this rewatch, I forgot that Tommy was technically more on John Boy's side.
Yeah, he was like 100% on John Boy's side with that thing.
Yeah, which honestly, there's not many times that I disagree with Tommy
That's
in
one.
terms of his tactics, but this particular episode, I disagreed with him on that one. I thought that was a huge mistake that he was going down that path.
I'm wondering if we have that opinion though, because we have retrospect on the situations. So
no, I think it's just handling it with the way the Father Changretta came over.
Mm-hmm.
It was very much in peace.
yeah,
It wasn't in. It was just even Arthur when he saw the way John Boy said he would put a bullet in both his kneecaps.
Mm-hmm.
Even Arthur looks at John like, "What are you doing?"
Well, Arthur was pissed off at that point. You know, I think what John Boy did made no sense. Right? Like I really don't. But
maybe was it a jealousy thing because he used to be with Lizzie?
probably. I do think though that once you've kind of stepped that far, like maybe Tommy just didn't have any other option but to be like, all right, well, we went this far, may as well go all the way.
That's where I was going with it. Is that John Boy kind of took that card out of his hand.
Mm-hmm.
The card was to say, hey, apologies to your son, whatever, you know? That was the play. Maybe not even apologize, but just say, yeah, he's free to do whatever he wants to do. Go for it.
Yeah.
We're whatever.
Yeah.
You're in charge. You can do what you want when they own the city like that, so they don't have to do what Tommy said, where if you apologize, it's like removing one brick by brick, and the whole house comes down. But I thought it was more Tommy has so much other shit going on that he couldn't deal with a war, and so he needs to send a message and send it quick to nip that problem in the butt right now. But in doing so, Grace gets shot as a direct result of John's actions to cut Changretta's son. I don't know if you thought about it that way, but it's direct result. He only hires that guy because he's outside the hospital, and you literally hear his son screaming in agony in the background.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't do that if they make peace.
That's true.
So Grace lives without John Boy's mistake.
Interesting.
Right?
That is very interesting. I didn't catch that. I would also question, is he really doing things this early on in the season for Winston Churchill? Like, I don't know if we've crossed that bridge yet. We knew at the end of the last season that Churchill would call upon him, but I haven't. I just don't recall this being part of.
He never mentions it. Who mentions it is Grace in episode 1 of season 3 when she's talking to Paulie. And she goes and tells, that's when Paulie was kind of rubbing it in her face that, Tommy doesn't trust her. And then Grace was kind of saying, we just came downstairs, we were having sex. And then he told me that the whole plot was essentially that they're trying to support the Russian royalists who are trying to fight the communists, and they're trying to supply them weapons. Yeah. Churchill supporting it, but he has to be secret because the government's against it.
Got it. Okay.
Blah, 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 blah. So this is the Churchill mission. It's just we haven't seen Churchill.
Got it. Yeah, that's what kind of threw me off a bit. But all right.
Yeah.
Well, that was my takeaway from this episode.
That's only really obvious when you've rewatched it a few times, because the political, like the complexity of some of the political plots, are kind of hard to catch on a first watch through.
Yeah.
Even Tommy's plot, if you remember the last episode, they talk about, you can start the episode again, by the way. They talk about how he's gambling everything on this one big robbery.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's just the way he goes. You can go 1.25.
Alrighty.
We start the episode with Tommy sending a message to a man named Nutley, which his name is kind of irrelevant, but he's the manager of a factory. And Tommy is interested in what are in 3 specific bays. He's looking for military vehicles that they're going to try to supply to the Russian royalists. Now, it's interesting. Did you notice in Bay 6, he kind of has a bout of PTSD. Like, he almost can't go inside the tank and has to wash his face off with some water. And there's a moment there where you can hear that sound, like that high-pitched ringing in the ears. And
oh, yeah.
He has a moment like that when he steps out of the tank. He actually has 2 moments like that in this episode, where that moment with the military vehicles, as well as when Scotland Yard arrests him and Hughes comes to his cell. and does that. Now, following his meeting with Nutley, he meets with...
It's a great name, by the way.
It is. I had to put as the title on top, Cracking a Nutley. And Tommy pulls a Tony Soprano move in his interaction with Nutley, because he's an honorable guy. Like, he doesn't want any business with the Peaky Blinders, but Tommy forces his hand, says, "Give me the keys," and he, pretty much threatens to kill him if he doesn't cooperate.
Yeah.
And he refuses Tommy's money at the end, but Tommy still puts it in his pocket. And that's a classic Tony Soprano move, where it's like a combination of two things. One, they want to have something over you, but two, they want to feel like they also helped you a bit too. Like, hey, I helped you. And then kind of like, they don't need to wave the carrot, but it's just like, you're going to take the money because I say you're going to take the money.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like a power play, Now, enter Father Hughes here. I don't know if this is his first meeting with Hughes.
This is the first time I think I've seen him in here.
Yeah, I thought he was in the previous episode, or am I wrong?
I think he was in the previous episode, but I don't know if he was ever introduced to Tommy yet.
Well, he meets with Tommy, and he is the go-between between the Economic League and, I guess they're called Section D, according to Tommy, which is what he describes as businessmen, MPs, and former military men, army officers. Tommy's disgusted by this guy. You can see what I'm talking about, where this guy is,
he's despicable.
Yeah, he's beyond Campbell despicable.
Yeah,
this guy is
beyond.
Which is interesting, right? He's got like a fire burning behind his head in this scene, right? It's like the flames of hell. Okay, so he meets with Father Hughes, and they're being stood up by the other men who are supposed to show up. But in the meeting with Hughes, it's more of a kind of a report. Tommy gives a report that the armored vehicles are in good condition, which seems to be the point of the meeting, as well as Hughes giving him a meeting to go to with the Romanovs, right?
Yeah.
Now, they're just essentially power playing Tommy. It's letting him know that they control him, right?
Yeah.
What's not clear to me here is whether Churchill is working with Section D, because these guys are despicable. I don't know if Churchill is trying to infiltrate them and Tommy's his spy, or if these are also guys who are working under the same plot.
I don't know.
I wouldn't know what to describe these men as, but let's intro the Russians. We met Princess Tatiana, or Duchess, whatever the heck she is, in the previous episode. And here we get the introduction to Leon Romanov, who is apparently a fake Romanov. He's a Georgian, and he doesn't seem to like that very much when people mention that to him, as Tommy does in this episode. Now, our introduction to him is a servant running across a field with a plate of food to a house. And the first thing he does is complain about the food being cold.
Yeah.
Or the platter being cold.
I don't know why. I don't know what the relevance is, but John Boy and Arthur, I think it was Arthur, did the same thing with the Changretta meeting. Somebody brought him tea, and he was like, "It's cold."
Touching the tea,
and he threw it.
Maybe it's a little bit of a direction there to show that this guy Leon's in the wrong, and also they were in the wrong with the way they treated the Changrettas. Maybe I didn't notice that bit, but we do see that this guy's kind of like this lazy slob. Two of his meetings, nobody wants to meet with him. At this point, we find out that the crown is having sympathy for, what's the word I'm looking for? Exiled royals.
Yeah, something along those lines.
Yeah, they've been exiled. I mean, they've been pushed out by the Bolsheviks in Russia. And Tommy does a little bit of research on the guy. He goes to the library and reads up on him. We find out that I actually paused the episode at that moment where we see that Leon is actually known for his cruelty. He was one of the most hated royals before the Bolshevik Revolution.
Interesting. I almost paused it, but I didn't do it. I didn't want to stop the episode.
Yeah. Tommy mentions that he had other meetings in the day when Hughes made the decision for him that he needed to go meet with Romanov, right? And that's why this whole meeting goes wrong. I don't think Tommy allows this meeting with Changretta to happen without him being present. And so what happens is you have John Boy and Arthur being left to lead the meeting, which they have one job to do: keep the peace. And they start a war, you know, which leads to Tommy's wife being shot.
John Boy
now
starts the war.
Yeah, it's like, it's illogical. It's just hot-headed, and I don't understand his hatred of... I mean, I can understand his hatred for them, but there's a bigger picture at play, right?
Yeah.
And this is who Lizzie's alluding to, who she was seeing. So they obviously had reason to break it up. Remember, they burned his restaurant, because the whole bit is that they burned a restaurant down in his territory. And that they're pressuring that Changretta's son cannot walk with any woman he wants in the city. Now, you can kind of see that they're getting back a little bit. Yeah, I noticed.
Yeah,
it's cold.
Yeah,
with the tea. It feels like they're rubbing his nose in it a bit, that they're in control.
They definitely are. 100%. I mean, everybody, like, he knows they're in control. He's paying them. There's no need for this. This is just complete overkill.
Yeah, it seems to be. You know, you're starting a war for no reason. You're in time of peace. You're dominating your competition, and you're here now just causing strife for no reason, right?
Yeah.
And Arthur really should know better in this scene. It's kind of his job here to step in and stop this nonsense from happening. So he's maybe not as at fault as John, because it would look weak if they showed that they disagreed with each other.
Well, that's exactly what I was thinking. He can't stop him because it would appear as weakness. And you can see he like keeps up the front like he's on John Boy's side until he leaves, and then he immediately turns on John Boy.
Yeah. I wanted to know, I mean, obviously it seems to be like a breaking of peace when you break a chair.
Yeah.
Because you're breaking the chair that's at the table for you, right? So you no longer can take your seat at the table. I'm assuming that's the meaning. I didn't look it up, but that's probably why Arthur tells them to clean it up and don't tell Tommy about the chair.
Huh. Interesting. I could see that making sense.
Yeah. It's funny because John Boy like immediately sort of regrets his approach here. He's like, we're not scared of them, right?
He seems like he regrets it for like a half a second, but this looks like it's a very touchy emotional subject for him. So I'm assuming this probably has to do with Lizzie, like you were saying earlier.
Yeah,
it doesn't just seem like he's trying to be a big shot. Yeah. He was getting really pissed off.
We get an interesting look at Tommy, like in his preparation to meet somebody who is a key player in the show, or at least for one of Tommy's business interests, right?
Yeah.
And so he goes to the library that Ada's working at, which is an odd job for Ada to have.
I was gonna say Ada the librarian. I don't think of, again, like something I never remembered.
I didn't remember her being a librarian either. Tommy kind of calls her out in it though. She's being nosy about what happened to the Russian she met at the wedding.
Yeah.
Because she knows he's dead. But he tells her, you want all the details because you're bored. And she doesn't deny it. She even associates the trucks and she says, our trucks, you know? Yeah. So she has a bit of a moment there with Tommy, which of all the laws that Tommy doesn't break, the only one he obeys is to not rip out a page out of a book in the library. Right? He asks her, can I rip this page out of this book? And she says, no, that's the people's property. And he listens. He does not rip the page out of the book.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It is. I mean, I don't think he obeys any laws.
Really cool library too, by the way.
Oh my God, I know. I wish there was something like that over here. I'd live in it. Not
You'd
literally,
live there, just like
I'd be there a lot.
Put a cot, just hope they forget about you at night and just like kind of sleep up there. Yeah.
No, I mean, I would just read as much as I could in there. I love the old classic looking books like that.
Just kind of glossing over this scene with John Boy and Polly. Polly plays the role of the intermediary here. She's trying to talk John Boy off a ledge because she sees the coming strife between the Changrettas and the Shelbys, and she sees it as unnecessary.
Yeah. And I mean,
sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I feel like she really wants to be careful with what's going on here because now her son's involved with the business. They're not a family to be messed with.
Yeah, I think I got my wish here from episode 1, which is I want to see Polly more in strategic, business-centered moments, right?
Yeah.
And she gets a lot of play here as the level head. And she's absolutely right. She's 100% right.
Yeah, I agree with
in my
her
opinion.
in this episode. I was like I said earlier, I was just taken aback by Tommy's reaction.
She wasn't even saying do a full apology. It was more of just compromise. Which, of all the moments, I understand John Boy here. Like, at this point, John Boy said what he said.
Yeah.
But now you got Changretta saying he's going to kill him.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's got to deal with Lizzie saying an apology on his behalf.
Mm-hmm.
Like, at this point, I understand John Boy's rage at the situation that he's put himself in. I think he regrets the words he said to Changretta. He was hoping it wouldn't go over that badly.
Mm-hmm.
But he's annoyed that Arthur's taken a side against him here. And surprisingly, I don't know if it's what we said where John Boy took the card away from Tommy to keep the peace, but Tommy agrees with him. Tommy's at fault here too for the whole assassin coming.
Yeah.
In some sense, right? Because he could have went to Changretta and said, listen, apologies, nothing will happen again, blah, blah, blah. But no, he doubled down and said, we're going to take 2 bars tonight. Mm-hmm. And we're going to send a message that rebellion will not be accepted here.
Yeah.
All right. To the Ritz Hotel with a very annoyed front desk. I don't know what you would call this.
I never remember what they are.
I forget what the term, whatever the hell. Anyways, the hotel worker, the concierge.
Maybe.
I don't know. Hotel clerk. Well, he wants Tommy to know that, hey, look, your pal Romanov, he's got like 4 outstanding bills with us right now. And he's really only being paid for by the Duke of something or other, which I could not catch his name.
Me neither.
Duke Mikhailov or something like that. Tommy pulls out a wad of cash and says, hey, get used to seeing me here. And pays for Romanov's debt.
It's a good way to make an entrance. Go ahead.
You know, Tommy in meeting with him here. It's funny because Tommy says, get used to seeing me dine here as he has no food in front of him in meeting with Romanov. I mean, Tommy does not eat on this show. So doesn't. What is he? What is he going to get used to seeing him dine? What are you going to, he's just going to sit at the table and do nothing.
I guess that's how you dine.
But there is a business in business etiquette, or if you want to say negotiations or whatever, you don't want to be the hungriest at the table. You know, you don't want to be eating, and if you're like in negotiation or kind of, I don't know if that you look weak, but you just look kind of sloppy.
Well, you do look sloppy too. I personally think it's that you look weak. Like you're like all you're really caring about is food, especially if you're
free
eating
meal.
Like this guy is. My gosh, you look cheap, poor.
Yeah, I think it's more along the lines of like if the meal's free and you're like this guy who's just chomping at the bit, ordering the most expensive thing on the menu with the caviar. It says a lot about him without saying without him having to say anything, right? And Tommy, on the other hand, has no plate of food in front of him, smoking a cigarette, and just once again disgusted by the second meeting of his day. Perhaps the best meeting of his day was with Nutley.
I think
the
so.
Manager of the warehouse.
At least he had a smile on that at some point, I think.
Yeah. Tommy cuts straight to the chase here. He lets Leon know that he knows that he's not a pure Romanov and that he's living essentially out of pity by the British government that's paying for these exiled royals, right?
Yeah.
But you can see this guy is out of his depths here.
Yeah.
He's obviously a pawn because we see later that his wife is the real boss. She's bossing him around and ringing a bell for him to come into the room, which is hilarious. But it's clear he's not. He's a very sloppy individual. He even loses his composure when Tommy calls him a Georgian, and he breaks his glass with his bare fist or bare hand and cuts his hand.
Bare hand. I mean, listen, I've squeezed the glass before. And it's a lot harder. Like, you have to intentionally want to break that glass, I think. Like, I don't know how you just reactionary, like, whoops, well, I didn't mean to break it.
Yeah, Tommy's cutting through the BS because he's already done a lot of work for them. And he's not getting paid the full amount that he was promised. But the Russian does give him a sapphire that we do find out later was cursed by a gypsy. But knowing Tatiana, she could be talking shit. It could just be some nonsense folktale.
She could be.
Now, do you think he's giving it to him with the ill intent of it being cursed and bringing some misfortune upon him?
I don't know. I'm not really sure. It could just be superstition, and it may not be even cursed.
I think he just doesn't have a pot to piss in, and he's just using whatever treasures they have left.
Yeah, the only thing that he has. I find it weird to talk about the delivery of this into the world before he gives it to Tommy, but great.
Well, they had to smuggle it out, so the women had to put it in their private areas to smuggle it in here, right? They fit 2 sapphire. What I found interesting was how he described how many his wife could bring in compared to his niece.
Who is Tatiana? His niece is Tatiana, right?
His niece is Tatiana. Yeah. Funny. She's a firecracker. On to John Boy's. Did you notice Tommy kind of like baiting out information as to where they store
I did.
The treasures?
I did. I was surprised that this guy, like, he must be kind of weak-minded to give up that much, in my opinion.
It's so clear to me that Tommy has a play there. You know, why on earth would you give that up? But it seems that he also told Tommy, we will no longer be soft and weak. So I think he's also replying to Tommy's baiting of information. Yeah. The following scene, we have Changretta getting cut up by John Boy. It's so unnecessary. John Boy
he just beats the shit out of his guard, and then
I'm sure this guy's no Boy Scout. You know what I mean? I don't feel bad for him necessarily, but after all, as Tommy says, they did want to kill Danny Whizbang, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That reminds me. So, did Danny Whizbang kill a Changretta in season 1? That must have been. No,
he killed an Italian restaurant owner. I don't know if he was a Changretta though.
I don't know. I mean, I guess they would have been paying the Changrettas for protection or something. I don't really know.
I do like the fact that everything's kind of connected in some ways.
Yeah.
On to the office. Michael only gets one scene here, and it's this room that has I'm assuming that light's kind of annoying at times.
I would imagine so, yeah. I mean, I
would hate to work with a light like that.
I've been in offices where the light kind of cuts in like that, and it's just like, oh my gosh.
It does look cool on camera, but
does.
he has a girl he snuck in there, which is the girl who was playing in the snow and at Tommy's wedding. So it seems like she's taken a liking to Mr. Michael Gray, the chief accountant of Shelby Company Limited.
Yeah.
All right. Potentially my favorite scene of the episode is the sit down with John Boy, and Tommy's surprised because I mean after all these watches I forgot that Tommy took this kind of curveball stance.
So did I.
On the Changrettas. I love his response to Polly when she's like, why are we doing this? And he says, hey, because we can, and if we can, we do. At that point I was like, hell yeah, man, take the bars. But in my head I'm like, yeah, this is stupid.
This is a bad decision, but you got the spirit, that's for sure.
Yeah. And what's super shitty here is that Arthur's trying to help John Boy off the hook because Tommy's almost like the reprimanding father here.
Yeah.
Who's, talking to his boys. And Arthur's trying to say, man, it was just a joke. John didn't think it would go this far. And John completely stays silent as Arthur's getting rung into by Tommy.
Yep.
So, not a great episode for Arthur in this. But
it's not. He's getting beat up
on all corners by his family, his wife, everyone. He's very conflicted in this season with how to live at this point.
Yeah.
Tommy here is very against the whole apologize because he calls Arthur Mr. Apologize and Paulie Mrs. Compromise.
Oh my gosh. best part of it right here. You just can't show weakness. I get it. Once it's gone this far, I get it. I wonder.
You don't want to get in a meeting with Tommy late in the day.
No. Tired Tommy.
He's been up since like 5 a.m. or 4 a.m. with Mr. Nutley, and then straight to Mr. Hughes, and then to London with the Ritz, and then back to his house in the country. I mean, he's had a long-ass day.
He's busy. It makes me wonder how he gets anything done, though. It's a lot of meetings.
I mean, you should relate. You have meetings all day.
It's
Do
true.
you get anything done?
I do. All right.
There
All
you
right.
go.
See, it's tired. I have these dumb ideas.
I'm cynical on meetings. I would say that if you have that many meetings in a day, unless you got a team to follow through, but Tommy has the team to follow through.
So do I. I guess that's how stuff gets done.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you can do those meetings and you give a plan of action, then you do it. Like Tommy does right here with, hey, take the 2 bars.
Yep.
He doesn't go and take the 2 bars. He says, you're going to take the, I don't know what the 2 bars. He said the 5 bells and something else. And he just goes home. You know, he's not the one leaving his family dinner. It's Arthur who's leaving his family dinner to go take these bars.
Yep.
So, all right. I don't know what the name of the woman is who's married to Leon Romanov, but she's the one who runs the show behind the scenes. She's just using him because probably in this portion of society, she's running through customs and being the woman. She doesn't want to, man, who knows? I don't know what the hell her motives are. Maybe she just feels that she's got to go through the man through this thing, but she totally runs the man here.
Oh yeah.
So
he seems very weak. I like the introduction of her here, ringing the bell, and he runs in like a.
Yeah, the bell is great.
puppy.
I mean, the bell is like, and he comes running in like out of breath. Yeah. You know.
Oh man.
But he just looks weak. I hate to dunk on this random actor, but I mean, he does a good job at looking very like, he plays the part well. I'll just say that.
He does.
She looks so tired too. Just so tired of dealing with him, even having to just put up with his ass. Even to take the little effort of ringing the bell,
it's too much.
Too much.
she has this look of disgust in her face as she talks to him.
I did laugh out loud though. She said, at the end of this business, you may need to kill Tommy Shelby. And I'm like, this guy's going to kill Tommy Shelby? Get out of here. Get out of here with that.
I mean, these people got connections, right?
Yeah. Well, we get to see the Shelby home life. We haven't seen the Shelby, Tommy, Grace home life other than the wedding.
Yeah.
Which was not a normal affair.
No, it's a party,
and,
man.
You love to see Grace kind of excited to see Tommy on the way home, but she's so excited with the charity that she has going on. She's telling him all about it, and he just seems happy to be home and see her. He's not really listening, but
no, he's happy that she's happy.
Exactly. It's one of those situations. Well, he does surprise her with a sapphire, which he had time in his day to get necklaced up at some point and prepped in the same day.
I mean, you got a lot of money. You can get things done.
Yeah. You just, like we were saying, how does he get all this done in one day? Does he sleep?
He does sleep. We do see him sleep. I mean, we've seen him get out of bed with women in the last season.
Did we?
Yeah.
Oh, last season. Yeah, last season. That was the last episode. This is wedding.
Oh, well, I mean, he wasn't sleeping in the last one.
It's true. Yeah. Grace is excited to have the Birmingham City Council leader coming, and I had to mention that Hughes did say he wanted to be at the charity dinner, so we can expect to see some unwelcome faces that Tommy's having to deal with now. I think what's happening here is it feels almost like, Breaking Bad. It's like it felt like family and business was getting too close together.
Yes.
The business is getting too close to affecting the personal life here. That's what it feels like with Tommy and the Russian business and the economically or whatever that was Section D business that he's in. It feels like it's getting too close to hitting home here.
Yeah, it's too close for comfort. I mean, he had Russians in his home. That's pretty close.
On his wedding day, he had to kill a Russian.
Yeah.
A Russian infiltrator.
That's just craziness.
On the other side of this, Arthur is at home as well, but with a wife who's not as happy to see him or accept him for who he is, and rather someone who says, working in the dark is for the devil. We said is the kicker there. Perhaps line of the episode is when Grace said, is that in good taste to wear a sapphire to a charity dinner? And Tommy replies, good taste is for people who can't afford sapphires. Yeah, man.
That's hilarious.
Arthur has to step out from the dinner with Linda to do paperwork, according to Arthur. That's his excuse. Arthur has zero poker face around Linda. He says, I'm just stepping out to do paperwork. At 10 p.m., it's pouring rain outside. You're going to go do paperwork?
I mean, I'll go do paperwork in the rain.
Arthur doing paperwork? Arthur, give me a break. And he looks so disturbed.
He always
He
looks
really-
destroyed when he's around her.
Does he when he's around her,
I mean,
or is it because
in
Tommy
private.
kind of called him out, and I think he's pissed about that.
Well, not Tommy. Arthur does at times act like a wounded child, like somebody who, somebody yelled at him and he's all hurt. So he's got Tommy, who's very controlling. I mean, he's in charge. He's the boss, yelling at him, and then he comes home, and I'm sure his wife is just pissed off with him because he's out doing the devil's work.
Yeah,
he always looks a bit distraught.
He's just very conflicted in this season. I mean, then again, he's always going through some personal conflict, and even in the prior 2 seasons as well.
Yeah.
We do get a montage here of the Peaky boys taking over the Changretta property, or the bars, and Arthur opting not to go out for drinks with John Boy, which John Boy and Arthur are just not on the same page. I think this is like, your college friend who's not matured and he wants to go to the bar after the thing, and he's like, hey man, let's go to the Garrison. And you're like, hey, I'm gonna head out, I got work in the morning. And he's not happy with you because you're being responsible.
That sounds like a personal story there. Have you been there before?
No, not really. I don't deal well with petty people.
Me
like
neither.
If they get petty, it's just okay, yeah, no worries, man, and kind of take note. Changretta screaming too much here.
A little bit. I mean, this is not a fresh wound anymore, right? This is like the next day.
For some reason in my head, I remembered his father being like, "Can you shut him up?" I remembered that because he's screaming and it's so annoying. All right, here's the gut punch scene for me. You get this beautiful family day out by the stables here with Grace, Tommy, and Charlie,
the goldfish,
which we've yet to really see. I'm not sure whose child this is, but it's definitely not theirs. It looks nothing like either of them. This little boy. And we get the goldfish scene. R.I.P. May Carlton.
Yeah, I know.
You know what, though? I'm happy. That's why it's such a gut punch, because to me, it's one of these scenes where, you want a good, healthy family life for the Shelby family, Speaking of Shelby's, Esme and John Boy having sex in the office.
The betting shop.
How many people has Tommy walked in on having sex? I think on John Boy, he's walked in on him like twice.
This is the second time. I swear this is the second time.
Yeah.
John Boy almost shot him the first time.
Yeah. Thoughts on this whole Scotland Yard thing? I had forgotten about this as well. I thought it was the Italians at first, and then I remembered it was the Section D making a statement.
I completely forgot about it, honestly.
I love the scene with Hughes and Tommy in the prison cell. And the whole I can charm dogs, and the dogs I can't charm I kill with my bare hands. He says, and then he goes, you learn how to do it when you're on a boat with a dog. They go crazy in the tunnels. I feel like I'm kind of in a tunnel right now. And he says, kill or be killed. It's like a great bit of work here. It's just like you want him to grab Hughes by the throat here. It's like one of those scenes. And he brings a Doberman pinscher.
Yeah. Another evil
I think
dog.
What makes it most disturbing is that he's a priest.
Yeah. Yeah. It really adds to his pedophile sort of personality.
Yeah, I didn't want to go there, but he definitely plays up to the stereotype
that's what I'm talking about.
Of the generalization. But and Tommy plays at that here too with the dog. All right.
Yeah.
I was hoping he would charm the dog and the dog would attack Hughes.
That would be hilarious. He's a gypsy. He's an animal person.
I felt like somehow, even though Hughes had a killer Doberman in his possession, that he still felt like he was threatened. Like he felt a little scared. He looks scared to me here.
He looks a little bouncy. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like when they do those close-ups on Tommy, where he says that he can charm dogs, it disturbs him. He looks like a little bit, concerned for his life. Like, what is this guy gonna do? Because at the end of the day, they can't kill Tommy, and that's the whole point of what Tommy's doing. is he says, you can't kill me, or you don't want to kill me at this point, because I would have been already dead.
Yeah.
But the most disturbing part of the scene is that Hughes kind of gets the last, I wouldn't say the last laugh, because he definitely breaks like gangster code or man code, and he says, check under your boy's pillow.
Yeah, that's
which considering the undertones of the pedo stuff here, sensitive territory. You know, I'm surprised Tommy in this scene didn't do anything, which shows how in deep he is with these people.
Yeah,
that he has to put up with it.
Yeah, I don't think season 1 or 2 Tommy would put up with it, but at the same time, he wouldn't be.
No, he had to. Remember season 1? He picks up that coin for Kimber. Kimber says, "Pick it up."
Yeah, he does do that.
And John Boy wants to go forward, or Arthur wants to go forward and fight him, and he says, "Tommy has bitten the bullet on times and done things he didn't want to do."
He has. I feel like it's always been because he knows he's outmatched at that point in time.
Of course, it's like I can pick up a battle now, and I might win this battle, but I'm gonna lose the war here.
Exactly.
That's what it is. But they do send a message to him threatening the life of little Charles here. It's really sad. It's a scary scene, actually. Like, who the hell put the card there?
Yeah. It's the fact
that who infiltrated the house? Like that they could get to you in your safe place?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's like we were saying earlier. It's the business has gotten too close to the family. Now it's literally under your son's pillow.
It made me feel like if you're this unsafe with this business right now, maybe you should move the family back to Birmingham, where you have a little more control. Feels like Tommy's very much isolated from the family at this point.
Yeah.
He's in a big house in the countryside. I'd say you take a nice flat in Birmingham and you just kind of camp out there until this whole thing is done, you know?
I mean, you got a lot more men in Birmingham than you do at home. It's literally just his family and like a maid.
Mm-hmm. And who knows if that maid's even on your side, because maybe it was her who put the card there.
Yeah.
We don't know. The bottom line is we don't know who did it, right? The random portrait artist. This guy's mad tall. When he stands up, he looks huge.
I mean, he looks big sitting down.
Yeah, I still don't know what his gig is or how he fits into the season. Maybe it'll be apparent to me later in the season.
It might be.
But he is a random character who shows up randomly to Tommy's wedding and seems to be just a plot device for Polly. Like one last chance at love type of thing, you know?
Yeah. It does have that feeling. I don't like, he came out of nowhere.
I just don't understand how a portrait artist gets an invite to Shelby's wedding. He's not a famous portrait artist.
No.
He's not like a renowned painter or anything like that. Yeah.
What do you think about Polly all dolled up? Is this in character though?
She looks pretty. It's the other side of Polly. You know, Polly's equal badass, equal mom, equal. You know, she's a kind of like all in one. You know.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of, I think maybe that's one of the reasons for his character is to show the soft side of Polly. You know.
I could see that.
He's giving her confidence. It's a confidence that she obviously did not have in herself. As you see her kind of like prep herself or like give herself a pep talk wearing the same dress, because when she comes down, she feels insecure in the dress. And he says, no, you own that dress. You own that dress. Because she says that her mother stole it in 1901 when she was cleaning the house of a rich woman. And he says, no, you own that dress. That dress was made for you. He says, I've painted plenty of rich girls who didn't belong in the dresses they wore or something like that. So he's really like charming it up to the point that Ada invites him to the charity dinner. Ada likes him. You know,
I mean, he seems like a nice guy.
He seems like a nice guy. He seems like a nice guy. I don't think he's odd. I think it's odd how he showed up.
Fair enough.
But he is kind of odd as well. You know, like in his, I just think he's random.
That he is. That is for sure.
Yeah. So is Polly starting to see herself as a woman of substance and class, which is kind of like that imposter syndrome. And it's kind of, you feel it in this charity dinner in a sense. Like, what are the Peaky Blinders doing in a posh, snobby environment like this? And it was like my first like gut reaction was, why do they want this? There's nothing appealing of this. You know, this does not look appealing to me.
Oh, yeah?
You know? It doesn't. Think about it. If you were in the position of Tommy, you're just saving face. The charity is kind of like a shell.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't want to do that.
Why do you want this BS? You're dealing with people like with the Section D, But I think it's inevitable. As you grow in Tommy's position, you have to deal with different types of criminals. And the criminals he's used to are gangsters. He's not used to MPs and priests and freaking army captains.
It's a whole other class of crime.
Yeah. Which is, I think, probably trickier because their webs go into the legit,
Yeah.
They own Scotland Yard, as they sent that message to Tommy, right?
I find it odd, honestly, that this priest is just always in these situations with these high class people.
I don't see where the priest fits in here.
Me neither.
That's what.
Like, why would any priest be here of all places? Even if you're a friend, like, it just seems odd.
You have to think about what position the church had in society back then. It was a much bigger role back then, probably in England, right? So, but maybe he is who knows what he is, like rank-wise in the priest, right? Maybe he is a high-level priest or whatever.
Yeah.
And that's why he's in this. This guy's an MP. His name is Patrick Jarvis, I believe.
I think that's what it is, yeah.
Yeah. Well, they meet in a dark room where you would expect people to meet, which is kind of conspicuous because I feel like anybody could just be hiding out behind one of those little dark benches and hear everything.
Or standing behind a column, yeah.
Seems like a very acoustically sound room, like where the sound would carry,
Oh, yeah.
So, interesting place to talk about the strategy of getting the military weapons to the Russians. They're once again pulling a dominating move here on Tommy, making him take Tatiana to go see the military vehicles, which Tommy is opposed to. Whether it's BS as to the risk of taking her there or whether it's because he thinks it's a bad move in the game of chess that he's playing right now is unclear for me. Unclear.
I'm not sure either.
Is this guy from the same place that Campbell's from? Because he has like a Scottish accent. Hughes. Are all of our key enemies going to be like Scottish?
I'm not sure. Let me see where he is from.
Tommy lets him know. He says, "Hey, there's a hell, and then there's a place below hell, and I'm forgetting nothing." Which you root for Tommy in the situation because oddly, although he's a bad guy to guys like Nutley, which he's really not, because he's attempting to do something on behalf of the good of the country. He's just being the silent warrior about it. Nobody knows. He's kind of bending the rules for the greater good in some sense, right?
Yeah.
And in this situation, the same thing.
Father
he's
Hughes.
doing bad things for a good purpose, I guess, at the end.
Father
but
Hughes
what that
is
purpose
from
is, I don't know.
Ireland. Sorry.
Ireland, okay.
Yeah.
Ireland. Yeah, I guess no connection then.
I don't think so.
Duchess or Princess Tatiana shows up and causes havoc here. Grace goes into spy mode in their little dialogue with each other, obviously realizing that Tommy and her know each other, but to what degree I'm sure she's not aware of yet, and will not become aware of because of what is going to occur. Now, Tatiana here talks to Tommy, and I think she's a little bit maybe embarrassed that she's getting rejected because the uncle sent her there to seduce Tommy. And it's not working.
Yeah, she probably feels like she's failing at her job. I also
and
think
so she says that
it's odd
line.
to use your niece as like a sexual pawn in some sort of scheme, but
Slightly odd, right?
Whatever floats your boat, I guess.
Jesus. Tatiana ends it with that little line about the sapphire necklace being cursed by a gypsy, which I think she's just playing a card that she knows that's a soft spot of Tommy, maybe, that he's superstitious. But could very likely be that it was cursed by a gypsy.
It could be.
The Romanovs have a very violent, unlucky past. You never heard about the Romanovs? Like they all die?
I am not as accustomed to the stories of the Russians and the Bolsheviks and all of that as you are. Yeah, I'm not.
You got to look up the Romanovs. I think it's the Romanovs with Rasputin. It's a very weird, some weird witchcrafty, weird stuff.
Oh, yeah?
Kind of reminds me of a scene that I can't talk about.
Oh, okay.
By the way. And you know the scene it is because it's in the
I
notes.
think I know.
And it's, you know, it has those vibes. But let's talk about Tommy rushing back to Grace to get the sapphire off her neck, but not in time, because in the moment that he's about to do it or walk away with her, Changretta's assassin appears to avenge Angel, which is not eye for an eye. Angel did not die. He got cut up.
Yeah. He got his face cut, and that was about it.
And by the way, if you're going to kill somebody, you got to kill all three of the brothers if you're these people.
Oh, yeah.
Because you can't kill one. After. You're dead regardless. So what are you doing? Your son's going to die.
Mm-hmm.
You know, at least, I don't remember if he does or not, but I don't want to go there. But you get what I'm saying? Like, if you're going to go down that route, you got to do the full thing. You got to wipe them all out.
It's suicide.
That's it.
Otherwise, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah, this is suicide. As Finn, John, and Arthur beat the living hell out of this guy, and we see Tatiana just standing there, just in the whole madness of the scene.
This episode just ends in utter chaos. It's crazy.
Yeah. It almost didn't feel right to bring in the Red Right Hand as the song right after the episode. It felt like it's so upbeat that it's like, y'all are gonna gut punch me like that. You're gonna set me up with like Tommy having a happy life and then just punch me right in the gut.
She got shot.
This is the
right in like.
This is the Peaky.
It's crazy.
Yeah, right. Yeah, she got shot like higher, not the heart.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens with her in episode 3, but this is like the Peaky. What's the word I'm looking for? Pattern. The Peaky pattern. That should have been the name of the podcast.
The Peaky pattern.
That's our analysis breakdown podcast of the Peaky podcast. It's the pattern. It's like things are okay, and then Tommy's ambitions get them into more difficult entanglements.
Mm-hmm.
I sound like Jada Pinkett Smith. But you know, he gets tangled up in a bunch of different things, bites off more than he can chew.
Yeah.
And then you find yourself in episode 3. You find yourself in episode 3 with the Changrettas against him, the Section D, the Russians that are kind of like weird. You know, she says, you know, Tatiana says we Russians have no morals, which I'm sure every Russian was like, what the we got some, we got at least some, some. You know, don't generalize us. Anyways, not a good episode for Russians. You know, why are Russians always used as the ploys or as like the bad guys on shows and movies?
I don't really know. I mean, I'm sure part of it just has to do with the history there, the constant feuding, or not, well, I guess feuding is the wrong term, but like warring and battles that have been going on. I'm assuming that's part of it, and I wouldn't be surprised. I'm not saying this is what I think, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was kind of like almost like political campaigning against Russians, you know, during the wars.
Yeah.
That kind of started this whole, well, let's just use that sort of aspect. I don't know. I mean, it seems like the history of their dark sides go back quite a while.
Yeah, I mean, this is the cliffhanger ending is Grace just shot, and we don't know what happens to her at the end of this episode, which leads us to episode 3 and the end of episode 2.
Yeah.
So Zach, overall impressions of the episode, and you're the leader of the categories. So
well, honestly, the episode was much better than I remembered. So I was
define better. So why better?
I just thought it was boring. Like the first time.
Why elaborate on boring?
Elaborate on boring. You want me to define
those
the
are
definition?
Those are two blanket words. They don't work for me.
Yeah, whatever. The first time that we watched this, or I watched this, it just seemed like a little dull. These 2 seasons felt a little drawn out and slow. But I like rewatching it, I don't get that feeling at all. Like so much has happened in these 2 episodes alone.
Why do you feel like it's slow? Like what about the plot feels slower than seasons 1 and 2? Because I'm in agreement. Like season 4 is not my favorite.
It feels more. It feels more business oriented. I don't even know, because seasons 1 and 2 are very business oriented, but they're the gangster. Like you've got gangster Tommy. Here you have a more, I want to say more methodical Tommy, as he's running a business now, right? A bigger business, a business that now has a legitimate side of things that has scaled up and grown.
Yeah, like essentially his plots are taking longer
Yeah.
to come to fruition.
That's kind of what it feels like to me.
Although, if I had to rebuttal, Tommy's strategy takes all of season 1 and 2 to come to fruition. It doesn't get resolved in season 1. Season 1 ends with very open-ended, a gunshot on a train station.
It does, and I was also going to mention that it's interesting that this is the second cliffhanger that we've had with Grace and a gunshot. Yeah. And it's true that the whole overarching like story wasn't completed in season 1. It took the 2 seasons. However, that primary villain was, done in season 1. Not Campbell.
Not really.
Not Campbell.
Not really. Kind of like a history of like not resolving in one season. Like Peaky plots, if they're going to get more complicated from here on out, extend past one season, and sometimes may not get resolved, or not necessarily that they don't get resolved, but some characters may fall off the map.
Mm-hmm. It's true.
Yeah.
I mean, Billy Kimber did die in season 1.
Yeah, so, but Sabini's off the map now.
Sabini
right?
is off the map. Sabini didn't die, but he was arrested or something happened. Or no, he wasn't arrested. No, that was Tommy was taken away. The other thing that I would mention about this season so far that I couldn't really appreciate the first time that I watched it was the appreciation for the setups that are starting to take place in the season. I'm trying not to give anything away, so I'm not going to like dive deeper into that, but I do appreciate what I am seeing set up in this season, and it's making me look forward to finishing the rewatch of season 4 as well.
Yeah, I could see that. I'm not seeing as many setups as you are. I'm seeing similarities. I'm seeing a direction that Peaky's going in now compared to season 1 and 2. Mm-hmm. The set pieces feel larger. The budgets feel bigger. Everything just feels more grand about Peaky Blinders in season 1 and 2. Season 1 and 2, you get, The Office. Not many. I don't recall a ton of locations in season 1 specifically. Which is normal for a pilot show, right?
Yeah, it's typically pretty slim.
Yeah. All right, let's get into the categories.
All right. Best scene.
Best scene is probably in the prison cell with Hughes, in my opinion.
That was good.
I like the whole dog thing and the charming the dog. It's a classic Tommy-ist.
Mm-hmm. I don't want to say the last scene, because the last scene is not, I mean, a lot happens, it's important, but it's not like great in any way. I kind of found the family meeting interesting as the one that stood out to me probably the most, because it was just the most shocking to me.
I also like the opening scene with Nutley in the factory.
That scene gave me some thoughts of another scene that I won't talk about.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I know. But it's a good scene. It sets it up, and it's like when Tommy has to step in, that means that this guy has not taken the warning from the other people he sent. Tommy's like the last resort guy to go in there. Mm-hmm. That's kind of like the impression I got. Mm-hmm. All right, next up.
Best line of the episode.
You can piss outside. By the stables. No, it's the sapphire line. It's the good taste is for people who can't afford sapphires. That's the line of the episode right there.
It is a great line. I think my favorite was the "when we can, we do" line from Tommy.
Yeah,
that was great.
Hi. Yeah, he goes, ah.
That was
good.
All right, good. Last one is best characters of the episode.
I gotta say, John Boy gets some shine. Although I hated all his decisions.
I hated his decisions, but it's the most shine I think he's gotten in a little while. So I would give this
maybe
one to
ever.
him. Yeah, maybe. No, I don't. Well, no, in season 1 when he had his moments, he was with all of the brothers. This is the one where he's kind of been out on his own.
I feel like we can just always blanket Tommy in there, but I'm gonna go with Paulie as well. Paulie has a solid episode here, just solid showing out.
She did have a good moment. I don't think I could give it to Librarian Ada. It's It's interesting to see her that way, but I wouldn't say this was like a great one for her. Although go ahead.
I did like the moment of her in the library when she's on the ladder and she goes, "Here's the retelling of the Bolshevik Revolution from the bastards from the bastards who escaped and from the people who suffered."
Yeah.
He says, "Which one do you want?" He takes the one from the bastards.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways,
that was funny. I think if I had to give a second one out, it would probably be Arthur, because it's interesting to see his character
conflicted.
Yes, it's he really does feel very conflicted, especially as he's around Linda.
We gotta give some, I know we don't like him, but Hughes does a good job at being introduced as the immediate despicable character.
Yeah, he does. He is a very hateable character. As of right now, does Tommy really have another enemy besides him at the moment? Like a real enemy that has a face to him? Because I wouldn't even put that guy Jarvis at his level, because he's only shown at the charity dinner for a second. I mean, I would say the Changrettas at this point. Yeah, but they're not on his... That's like self-inflicted. Self-inflicted, and Tommy can deal with them. Mm-hmm. So that one I wouldn't put it their level. So I got to give it to Hughes, although he is the most despicable character in all of Peaky Blinders, maybe. I'll tell you what, Campbell and Hughes, those actors can really make some pretty hateable characters. Yeah, but Campbell's a Boy Scout compared to this guy. Like Campbell's invited to the cookout. Yeah. I mean, I'm getting ahead of myself because I've watched season 3. So, it's tough. I'm sorry, listeners out there who are watching for the first time, but it's hard to keep my Hughes hatred inside. Yeah. All right. Well, that does it for the superlatives, as you like to call them. Mm-hmm. That's it. All right. Well, you do the little... I will do the little... outro. I will do the little outro. Thank you, everybody, for listening to Season 3, Episode 2 of the Peaky Blinders podcast by Story Archives. You can find this podcast anywhere you find podcasts: Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts. You can visit us on Instagram at Story Archives. You can visit our website at storyarchives.themidnightexchange.com. And if you go to themidnightexchange.com, you will find a bunch of links to other podcasts, social media. And if you want to send us an email, you can drop us an email at podcast@themidnightexchange.com. And if you enjoyed listening to these episodes and enjoy our shows and style of entertaining you all episode to episode, please take 2 seconds and rate our podcast. Rate it what you want. Hopefully not 1 star, but like give us 4 or 5. I'd appreciate it. It really helps us get found, and helps us allows us to put more effort into these podcasts and preparing them for you so that you can enjoy them as you listen to them, wherever you listen to them, however you listen to them. All right, thank you for tuning into this one. On to episode 3, Zach. We are officially about to be midway through season 3 and almost done with our whole Peaky Blinders show. That's true. It's coming up. All right. It's counting down. Thanks, y'all. Stay peaky.